سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ولا شبيه ولا مثيل له ولا ضد ولا ند ولا جسد ولا صورة ولا أعضاء له. كان الله ولا مكان، فهو الآن على ما عليه كان. فلا تضربوا لله الأمثال، ولله المثل الأعلى. تنزه ربي عن الجلوس والقعود، وعن الحركة والسكون، وعن الاتصال والانفصال. لا يحل فيه شيء ولا ينحل منه شيء ولا يحل هو في شيء، لأنه ليس كمثله شيء. مهما تصورت ببالك فالله لا يشبه ذلك. ومن وصف الله بمعنى من معاني البشر فقد كفر. وأشهد أن سيدنا وعظيمنا وقائدنا وقرة أعيننا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله ونبيه وصفيه وحبيبه وخليله، أرسله الله هدى ورحمة للعالمين، هاديا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه سراجا وهاجا. سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين كلما ذكره الذاكرون وغفل عن ذكره الغافلون. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا حبيب الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا عظيم الجاه. I praise Allah, I glorify Him, and I thank Him for all the blessings that He gives without Him being obligated. And I ask Allah to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and to protect his Muslim nation. I testify no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, the one without a partner, the one without an equal, the one without a similar, the one who is unlike anything in the universe, and nothing in the universe is like Him. He has no father, no mother, no sister, no brother, no son, and no daughter. He exists without time and place because He's the creator of time and place. He does not reside above the throne, and He is not attributed with fatigue, like the non-Muslims say. Our Lord is glorified beyond any imperfection that the non-Muslims attribute to Him. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala does not resemble that. And whoever attributes an attribute of the creations to Allah is outside of Islam. And I testify that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, the son of Hashim, the son of Abdul Manaf, from the tribe of Quraysh, is the best creation of Allah and His final prophet and messenger, sent to all humans and jinn, and He is truthful about everything that He conveyed of the revelation. Thereafter, remind ourselves to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah in attending the session of Islamic knowledge, because having the sincere intention is a requirement to get the reward. So the Muslim, whenever he does a good deed, he has to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah to get reward for that good deed. The reward is defined as the compensation that the Muslim receives in the hereafter for the good deeds that he did in this life among what makes him happy. An example of the reward that is guaranteed to the righteous Muslim in the grave is that his grave is expanded approximately 105 feet by 105 feet, and his grave is illuminated with a light similar to the light of the full moon, and the fragrance of paradise will be present in his grave. The sincere intention means for the Muslims to do the good deed, seeking the acceptance of Allah only, and not the praise of the people. So alhamdulillah, we are grateful to Allah that we have been guided to Islam, because Islam is the only true religion, Islam is the only valid religion, Islam is the only religion accepted by the Creator of the universe, as is proven in verse 19 of Surah Al-Imran, Inna ad-deena inda Allahi al-Islam, which means indeed the only accepted religion to Allah is al-Islam. And also verse 85 of Surah Al-Imran, وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِ غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. which means indeed whoever seeks a religion for himself other than Islam, it will never be accepted from him, and in the hereafter he will be among the losers. So we are grateful for this great endowment, the greatest endowment, which is to be guided to Islam, because had it not been for the guidance from Allah, we would not have been guided to Islam. وَمَا كُنَّا لِنَهْتَدِيَ لَوْلَا أَنْ هَدَانَ اللَّهِ, which means we would not have been guided had it not been for the guidance from Allah Ta'ala. And we are also grateful and thankful to Allah that we have the knowledge of Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the saved group. Just as the Prophet ﷺ explained in the Hadith, وَإِنَّ أُمَّتِي سَتَفْتَرِقُ إِلَى 73 فِرْقَةً كُلُّهَا فِي النَّارِ إِلَّا وَاحِدَةً وَهِيَ الْجَمَاعَةِ. So one narration of this Hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, indeed, my nation will split up into 73 groups. All of them will be in hellfire except for one, and that is the congregation. In another narration, the vast majority, and in another narration, مَا أَنَا عَلَيْهِ وَأَصْحَابِي. So this hadith lets us know that those who identify as Muslims, those who claim to be Muslim, that demographic of people, they will split up into 73 groups. All of them will be in hellfire except for one. And the Prophet ﷺ was explicit about who that one was. He said, the congregation, which is known through other authentic narrations to refer to the community of Muslims, the majority of Muslims, what is known as al-jama'ah. And also the other narration, as-sawadul a'zam, it means the vast majority. And also the metric or the standard by which we judge the vast majority as being guided is that they have the same creed as the Prophet ﷺ and the companions radiyallahu anhum. An example of that, to put it into application, if you were to ask those who identify as Muslims, who is the first rightful caliph in al-Islam, the majority of those who claim to be Muslims will say Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. And only a minority among those who claim to be Muslims will say that it should have been al-Imam Ali radiyallahu anhu. So we know that that minority is not the saved group, that they are part of the 72 deviant groups. And another example of that as well is if you ask the people who identify as Muslims, how many obligatory prayers are the Muslims obligated to pray every day and night? The majority of those who identify as Muslims will say 5 daily prayers, and only a minority among those who claim to be Muslim will say that we're only obligated to pray 3 times a day, and some might even say that we are not obligated to pray at all. So those that say other than 5, we know that they are deviants, we know that they are not the saved group, we know that they are part of the 72 misguided sects. Continuing on with our subject matter, which is defending the chosen, that is, defending the Prophets ﷺ from the slander and lies that the enemies of Islam have said about them, and also the mistakes and incorrect and inaccurate things that are found in some of the books that are attributed to some imams in al-Islam. So as usual, our policy is that we exonerate those imams from anything that is explicitly blasphemous, that has no way of interpreting it in another way. So we exonerate them from them having said that, and we say that it was planted in their books. And so we gave many examples. We started with Prophet Adam alayhi salam, who is the father of humanity, the first prophet and messenger. We dispelled some slander and some lies that the children of Israel, that they had said about him, and some things that are mentioned in some books of tafsir, which are not befitting to say about a prophet. And we mentioned like that from Adam alayhi salam all the way up to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And so we've been speaking about the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and we got to speaking about this section, refuting the claim, the slander, and the lie that some people say, among them Ibn Taymiyyah, la'anatullahi alayh, where he claims, which is a blasphemous claim, he claims that Allah Ta'ala makes the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam sit with him, next to him on the throne, wal-'iyadhu billah. So we've been talking about how first Allah Ta'ala, how He is clear from being attributed with sitting, dwelling in a location, settling and hovering. And we mentioned proofs for that. We mentioned about Al-Imam Malik radiallahu anhu that it is confirmed what was narrated from Al-Bayhaqi. So those who attribute bodily attributes to Allah in our time, those who promote that blasphemous belief, the body worshippers of our time, are the Wahhabis. These people that falsely call themselves Salafis. And also, just on a side note, anyone who claims to be a Sunni Muslim, who claims to be an Ash'ari, or who claims to be a Maturidi, and he calls the Wahhabis Salafiyya, this person is a betrayer of the Muslim nation. It is not permissible to refer to the Wahhabis as Salafis because it is misleading and it's a lie and it gives the wrong impression. Of course, the Wahhabis, they chose that name for themselves because they want people to think that they are supposedly the followers of the Salaf. But the forefathers of the Wahhabis, or the forefather of the Wahhabi movement, one of the main people that they take from, Ibn Taymiyyah, came 600 years after the Prophet ﷺ, and the founder of their movement, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, he came 1,000 years after the Prophet ﷺ. So there's no excuse and there's no justification to refer to the Wahhabis as Salafis. They call themselves that, of course, because they are misguided and they are corrupt and they are liars and they are body worshippers and they have an agenda against the Sunni Muslims. And of course, there are those who they want to placate and want to be complacent and they want to harmonize and hug and unite with the Wahhabis, who are enemies of Islam. So they try to normalize their existence in the people that claim to be Muslim, and so they call them Salafis, but they are not. They are not Salafis. So what these Wahhabis, what they do is that they try to intimidate the common Muslim, and they come to the person with verses of the Quran that are called mutashabihat, and hadith that are called mutashabihat, and also they come with narrations that are not confirmed to the Prophet ﷺ. So they come with narrations that are fabricated. They come with narrations that are extremely weak, that could never be used as evidence in the creed. And they come with narrations that are unconfirmed, citing some of the companions to try and convince people that Allah Ta'ala is sitting on the throne, or rising above the throne, or settled on the throne, or hovering above the throne. And so among the things that they say, because they try to use the traditional imams and the widely accepted imams like Al-Imam Malik radiallahu anhu, Al-Imam Shafi'i radiallahu anhu, and Al-Imam Abu Hanifa and Al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who they have hijacked his name, and they try to misappropriate the Hanbali school. So they try to quote these imams and they try to attribute to them things that supposedly support their creed of body worship and anthropomorphism and likening Allah to the creation. So among what they say is they claim that Imam Malik said a certain word, and this claim of theirs, that Imam Malik, that he said al-kayfu majhul, is not confirmed or authentically connected with a chain of narration to Al-Imam Malik. But what has been confirmed is what Al-Imam Al-Bayhaqi radiyallahu anhu, what he narrated with a good chain, with a chain that can be used as evidence, that it is to the degree where it can be used as evidence from the route of Abdullah, the son of Wahb, that he said, we were with Al-Imam Malik, and in his session, and a man came in, a troublemaker. Somebody came into the session of Al-Imam Malik trying to make trouble. So he addressed Al-Imam Malik with his kunya. He called him, he said, Ya Aba Abdillah. So, and then he said, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa, citing verse 5 of Surah Taha. And then he asked a question, which you can tell from the question that this person is misguided, and also this question itself is not to be asked and is not permissible to ask because it implies something non-befitting to Allah. So this misguided person, this heretic, he said, كَيْفَ اسْتِوَاؤُهُ, he asked Imam Malik radiallahu anhu, how is the istiwa? So he recited the verse and then he asked Imam Malik, how is the istiwa? It should be known that the term how or the term kayf, it means, the meaning of it is that which is among the attributes of the creations, like an image, like being in a place, like having a size, like having a color, like having a certain form. This is all kayf. This is all considered kayf. And of course none of that is attributed to Allah. Allahu Ta'ala is clear of being attributed with a kayf. It's not like the way that the body worshippers and the anthropomorphists and the Wahhabiyya, how they understand it. They think that the kayf is something that Allah has, but that we cannot imagine it and we cannot picture it and we cannot know the reality of it. Whereas Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, we negate the kayf. So when the Sahaba and when the Salaf and when the companions and when the Tabi'un and when Atba'u Tabi'een, when they said bila kayf, without a how, they negated all physicality from being attributed to Allah, and they did not mean by that Allah has a how, but we can't know what it is. Now, what did this man say to Imam Malik? And this is the proof that this man was wrong for his question. So it is this narration, and even the Wahhabis, they narrate this part of the narration where they say that this man came and asked Imam Malik about the how. And so we see that the reaction of Imam Malik when this misguided person, when this heretic asked about the how, just his reaction to his question lets us know that this person, that he's wrong for his question. So he said, كَيْفَ اسْتِوَاؤُهُ, this misguided person, he asked Imam Malik, how is the istiwa of Allah? So Imam Malik, he put his head down and he began to sweat profusely because he was severely annoyed and disturbed by this person's question. It's called al-ruhada in Arabic, which is a profuse type of sweating that drenches. And of course this is due to how upset Imam Malik was by the question of this heretic. And then he lifted his head, Imam Malik radiyallahu anhu, he lifted his head and he said, this is what's confirmed, not what the Wahhabis say, this is what's confirmed. Imam Malik, he said, ولا الرحمن على العرش استوى كما وصف نفسه ولا يقال كيف والكيف عنه مرفوع, or وكيف عنه مرفوع وما أراك إلا صاحب بدعة أخرجوه, انتهى. فقول مالك رضي الله عنه وكيف عنه مرفوع أي ليس استواؤه على عرشه كيفا أي هيئة كاستواء المخلوقين من جلوس ونحوه. So, what did Imam Malik say when this person asked that question? First, anyway, when he raised his head, Imam Malik radiallahu anhu recited the verse and he said, Ar-Rahmanu al-Arsh istawa. And he recited the verse, so that's how we're going to convey it. He recited the verse and then he said, Ar-Rahmanu al-Arsh istawa, as Allah Ta'ala revealed. Meaning, we confirm the term istawa, we don't negate it like the Jahmis do, which is another thing that the Wahhabiyya, what they like to do, is they like to accuse the Muslims who do not attribute bodily attributes to Allah, and who clear Allah from resemblance to the creation, and basically the Ash'aris and the Maturidis, and those who do not adhere to anthropomorphism or corporealism, the majority, Ahlus Sunnah, they refer to the Sunni Muslims as Jahmiyya, because this group, the followers of Jahm ibn Safwan, this person, this person, he was a misguided person. The Jahmi faction, they follow this person, that he negated the attributes of Allah Ta'ala. So this is not what Ahlus Sunnah does. We confirm the istiwa. We say, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa. We say that Allah attributed to himself istawa, so we don't negate it. And this is the beginning of the Imam Malik's statement, Kama wasafa nafsah. So we confirm istawa for Allah, وَلَا يُقَالُ كَيْفَ, and it is not said how, meaning negating the how. meaning it's not sitting because that's a how. Sitting is a how. Even if you're ignorant of the position of sitting or the way of sitting or the form that this sitting takes place, this is a how. Sitting is a how. So not knowing the detail of the how does not save the person from anthropomorphism. Yani we have to negate the how completely. So basically, the meaning of وَلَا يُقَالُ كَيْفَ, it is negating the how. So there is no how, meaning it's not sitting. So istawa doesn't mean sitting, it doesn't mean settling, it doesn't mean hovering, it doesn't mean rising above, it doesn't mean established over. And then he said, وَكَيْفَ عَنْهُ مَرْفُوعٌ. And he said, وَكَيْفَ عَنْهُ مَرْفُوعٌ. It means that the kayf, it is not permissible and not intellectually possible and rejected to be attributed to Allah. وَكَيْفَ عَنْهُ مَرْفُوعٌ أي وَكَيْفَ عَنْهُ مَمْنُوعٌ وَكَيْفَ عَنْهُ مُسْتَحِيلٌ. So it is not permissible intellectually or religiously to attribute a how to Allah. And then he said, and I don't see you except a heretic. Kick him out or get him out. Remove him. أخرجوه. Remove him. So he was kicked out. Another thing to be learned from this, Imam Malik radiallahu anhu didn't sit there and start prompting this person to say blasphemy and get into a back and forth for a spectacle or for entertainment or just to have fun. This is religion, this is Islam, this is the deen. So some people nowadays, they treat these types of conversations as some form of entertainment, as some sort of light matter, when in reality this is having a mistake in the creed. Of that type of mistake, it is a deadly mistake and it is a blasphemous mistake. And the one who dies while being an unaccountable non-Muslim, he will reside in hellfire forever. So it is a serious matter. It is not like these people that go on these platforms and they look for someone to get into an argument with so that they can satisfy this desire that they have within themselves to argue in a dispraised way. Not the type of argument that is praised in Al-Islam, which is to establish truth and to dispel falsehood, to eradicate falsehood. So Imam Malik, he didn't go back and forth with this person for entertainment purposes. Instead, he said, remove him, get him out. Now, what the Wahhabis like to do is they like to try to say that Imam Malik radiallahu anhu said that al-kayf is majhul. They try to make people think that Imam Malik said that there is a kayf, but it is unknown. And of course, this is not correct and not true and is not confirmed. There is no authentic connected chain narrating that wording from Imam Malik. Rather, the authentic wording is وَكَيْفَ عَنْهُ مَرْفُوعٌ, which means that the kayf is mamnu', mustahil, impossible, not permissible to attribute to Allah. As for those, you might find some among the Ash'aris who mentioned about the kayf that is majhul, but it is not with the connotation or the meaning that the anthropomorphists or the body worshippers used. Still, it's with the meaning of that the kayf is negated. Sometimes the Ash'aris, they use the term kayf or kayfiyya to mean the reality of Allah Ta'ala. But still, the first part of the statement, وَلَا يُقَالُ كَيْفَ, is a negation of the how. It is not confirming that there is a how, but we just don't know what it is. And if some Ash'aris, they said, وَالْكَيْفُ مَجْهُولٌ, according to some Ash'aris, and they use the term kayf to mean the reality of Allah Ta'ala, and not referring to an attribute of the creations or a form of being or an image or anything that is likening Allah to the creations. But in any case, Imam Malik radiallahu anhu, he did not say it. The jurist and linguist and scholar of hadith, Muhaddith Murtada al-Zabidi, he conveyed from Al-Hafiz Taqiyuddin al-Subki, who he reached the level of being a mujtahid. He said, what is given precedence to in the explanation of al-istiwa is al-istila. The one who gives precedence to that tafsir, the one who explains istawa as qahara, or istawa as dominating and superiority and preserving the throne and conquering the throne, the one who gives that tafsir precedence to besides other meanings. At-Taqiyuddin as-Subki, who is a mujtahid, he said this person did not do anything wrong, this person did not commit a sin, and he did not attribute something to Allah that is not befitting. So he's basically saying that the one who interprets istawa as istawla, as dominating, subjugating, having control over, dominating the throne, whoever uses that tafsir, according to Taqiyuddin as-Subki, who is a mujtahid, he said this person did not do anything wrong, and this person, he did not attribute anything non-befitting to Allah. And then he said about the one who interprets istawa as sitting, he said, and the one who attributes sitting to Allah Ta'ala and said, and he claims that this is not amongst the attributes of the bodies, he has said something that there is no proof for it in the language, and so it is invalid. And he is like the one who is confirming anthropomorphism or attributing bodily attributes to Allah while at the same time negating it. So he is taken by his confirmation, and his negation does not benefit him. And know that Allah Ta'ala, He is attributed with the perfection of dominion eternally and everlastingly, and the throne and what is under it has a beginning. And so Allah Ta'ala revealed ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ, because of a change that occurred in the Arsh and not a change that occurred in the attribute of Allah. End quote. That is the quote from Murtada Az-Zabidi. That's what he said, that the one who attributes sitting to Allah and then says that he doesn't mean like the attributes of the bodies has said something that does not comply with the language and that is not supported by the language, and so it is invalid. And he would be like the one who confirms a body to Allah while at the same time negating it. Yani if someone, they confirm something and if they admit to something and then they negate that thing, their negation of it is cancelled out. Yani if they say that Allah Ta'ala is a body but not like bodies, then his confirmation of saying that Allah is a body is taken, and his negation when he says not like other bodies is cancelled or ignored. It doesn't benefit him. So the meaning of this statement about the attribute of the dominion of Allah is the attribute of Allah eternally and everlastingly. Allah Ta'ala is attributed with being the owner and the one who has the eternal and everlasting dominion eternally and everlastingly. So it is an attribute that is eternal and everlasting, and according to the way of the Maturidis, how they mention this, that Allah Ta'ala is attributed with being the creator even before the creations exist. Inshallah, in another class we will delve into this issue more, but when they say that Allah Ta'ala has the dominion eternally and everlastingly, and it's referring to that way, and that what is under the Arsh and the Arsh itself, it has a beginning. And so the verse ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ, yani they interpret that istawa is an attribute of doing of Allah, and according to their way, these are eternal and everlasting attributes that are attributed to Allah, and to that He is attributed with, yani just like we say about that Allah Ta'ala knows everything and Allah Ta'ala sees everything. These are attributes of His reality. And so they say about the attributes of the actions that they are attributes of His reality, eternal and everlasting. And so when they say ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ, they're mentioning that a change occurred in the Arsh and not in the reality of Allah, or not to the reality of Allah. So this saying of As-Subki, it is an explanation from him, and it is showing that he, or that his creed and his way and what he believes is that al-istiwa is an attribute of doing, eternal, not a creation, not subject to what applies to the creations, just as that is the madhab of the Salaf, like Abu Hanifa and Al-Bukhari and other than them, because both of them, they said that the attribute of doing of Allah is His attribute in eternity, and what is made from the creating of Allah has a beginning, or is it is an event, it has a beginning, it has a starting point, it is a creation. So how ugly is it, the imagination and the misguided thoughts of those ignorant ones, that they think that Allah Ta'ala, or that the meaning of the verse is that Allah Ta'ala created the heavens and the earth, and He is down below the Arsh, and then He rose over it and climbed in altitude and settled upon it. This is a blasphemous claim. It is also an ignorant claim. It is something that the people, many people that they claim to be Muslim, they might believe that because of the widespread ignorance and the widespread efforts of the Wahhabis, and because of the those who claim to be Ash'aris and those who claim to be Maturidis, and those who are looked at as giants of Ahlus Sunnah, while their mouths stay quiet and they don't warn against the Wahhabis, and they judge the Wahhabis as Muslims, and they tell the Muslims, oh, these people, they are people of bid'ah, but they're still Muslims, na'udhu billah. So they are trying to normalize for people to think or to believe that if you believe that Allah, about this verse, if they have the belief that Allah Ta'ala created the heavens and the earth, and He was below the Arsh, and then He rose above it, that He climbed in altitude until He settled on the Arsh, that such people are Muslims, this is a great injustice and disservice to the Muslim nation, and they are betrayers, and they will have a lot to answer for on Judgment Day. Somebody asked if someone swore to do something that's haram, it's forbidden to swear. And we'll answer questions at the end. Subhanallah. How big is the need for these people that are looked at as Ash'aris or Maturidis or Sunni Muslims? How big of a need is it for them to call out and to judge those body worshippers and those who say that Allah Ta'ala is sitting on the throne, or established on the throne, or hovering on the throne, to call them out for what they are, which is non-Muslims? Why do they play this? Why do they try to make people think that the Wahhabis are Muslims? Why do they try to make people think that they are valid? They are not valid. They are a cancer of this nation. They have caused much bloodshed and destruction in the Muslim communities and in the Muslim countries, and upon them is what they deserve from Allah. May Allah relieve us of them and protect us from their harm. Now some Wahhabis, they say that Allah Ta'ala is hovering above the space, above the throne, without touching it. And some of them, they say that Allah Ta'ala is touching the throne. And the speech of Ibn Taymiyyah in some places indicate that he believes that Allah Ta'ala is touching the throne. And in other places, in some of his works, he indicates that he is not touching the throne. And Allah Ta'ala is clear from being attributed with both of those things. And among the proofs for that, and to clear Allah from being attributed with hovering above the throne, or being settled on the throne, or touching the throne, is the hadith of Al-Imran of Imran ibn Husayn that is narrated by Al-Bukhari, كَانَ اللَّهُ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْءٌ غَيْرُهُ. This hadith, it says Allah exists eternally and nothing else existed. Yani Allah existed eternally and nothing else existed, meaning before Allah Ta'ala created the creations, He existed and no creations existed. This hadith proves that before any of the universe existed, Allah Ta'ala existed without it. Before the place, without a place. Before the void, without a void. Before space, without space. Because both the place and the void and space are created. And it is a strange time that we're living in, 2024, 2025, where there are people literally going online. This is on the internet. They say it with no shame, where they try to tell people that the place is not a creation. They say, oh, because this is a subjective, a relative thing. So because it's relative, does it mean it's not a creation? Just if you, let's say you imagine Superman in your mind, that thing you imagine, you're saying it's not a creation. A'udhu billah. Our thoughts, our imagination, what we say to ourselves, our internal dialogue, what we draw on paper or what we visualize in our minds before we put it on paper, all of that is created by Allah. All those things are created by Allah. So the place is a creation, space is a creation, directions are a creation. Even though, let's say, the directions, they're relative, and they're relative to the human. So something is above you, below you, to the side of you, to the left of you, in front of you, behind you. But still, they are creations. They exist. Even if something is a concept, let's say, it is still the creation. That concept, let's say, exists in the mind of the person by the creating of Allah. The person did not create that concept or that thought. So Allah Ta'ala is clear from being attributed with any of those things, and the matter is, just as the great Imam and the great Zahid, the one who's detached from the worldly matters, Dhunnun al-Misri, how he said, مَهْمَا تَصَوَّرْتَ بِبَالِكَ فَاللَّهُ بِخِلَافِ ذَلِكَ. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala does not resemble that. And this is taken, or that saying is taken from the verse, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. So here we're going to mention some confirmed things that Ibn Taymiyyah said that are explicit in his creed or his belief of attributing bodily attributes to Allah, so that the one who has an objective, the one who looks objectively, can see with his own eyes, and so he can be warned about the calamities and the tragedies and the poison of the authorings of Ibn Taymiyyah. That the one who, because of some of his authorings, many people were seduced and misguided, and they fell for the tribulation, many of these ignorant people. Ibn Taymiyyah, he said in his book that he claims to be a tafsir of Surah Al-Alaq, he said, and among that is the hadith of Abdullah, the son of Khalifa, the famous one, which is narrated from Umar, from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now remember, what Ibn Taymiyyah is saying is not true. He claims it was narrated by Abu Abdullah Muhammad, the son of Abdul Wahid al-Maqdisi, and some others of what he calls the people of Hadith. And just so you know, Ibn Taymiyyah, he has the tendency to attribute these deviant and blasphemous sayings to the people of Hadith. He'll say, this is what the people of Hadith said, or this is what the scholars said, or he'll say, this is what a group of scholars said. He always say these types of things, but in reality, he's talking about either what he made up on his own, or what the body worshippers that came before him said, or what the philosophers said. So it's never referring to an actual credible source in Islam. So what did he say? He said that supposedly this hadith was narrated supposedly and he said that the throne and the kursi of Allah, that they are larger than the heavens and the earth, and that he says that Allah sits on it, and the extra amount that is left is the amount of 4 fingers, or what is left of it is not more than 4 fingers, and that when he sits on it, it makes the sound of leather, the same sound that when a rider gets on a saddle makes. Na'udhu billah. So basically, Ibn Taymiyyah, he's trying to say that there's a hadith that says that when Allah Ta'ala sits on the throne, it makes that creaking sound that it makes like when a person sits on a saddle, on a new saddle. Na'udhu billah. And so this is what Ibn Taymiyyah said, that's enough to show that he believes that, he claims that. And he said in his book called Al-Fatwa Al-Hamawiyya, after some speech, he said, and Allah Ta'ala is literally with us, and He is literally above the throne. A'udhu billah. So we see that Ibn Taymiyyah, he has this issue where he has this these two contradictory beliefs, where he says that Allah Ta'ala is literally with us, wherever we are, which is something that if the Wahhabis, they heard someone say that, they judge that person as a blasphemer. And at the same time, Ibn Taymiyyah, he said, and he is above the throne literally. Na'udhu billah. And then he said in his book that he called his Fatawa, that supposedly the accepted scholars and the righteous Muslims, that they said that Muhammad, of course this is not true, this is blasphemy. He claims that they said that Muhammad, the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his Lord makes him sit with him on the throne. We seek refuge with Allah from such misguidance and blasphemy. And Abu Hayyan al-Andalusi, the great grammarian, the great expert of tafsir, the reciter, he said in his tafsir, An-Nahrul Mad, he said, I read in the book of Ahmad ibn Taymiyyah this, the one who he lived at his same time, his contemporary. He said, I read with his handwriting in a book that he called the Book of the Throne. He said he read in there that Ibn Taymiyyah said, of course, the blasphemous statement, that he read that Ibn Taymiyyah wrote that Allah sits on the kursi, and he left a space to sit the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with him. Subhanallah. Na'udhu billah. So Ibn Hayyan, Abu Hayyan, he said he read that with his own eyes, and he said that he read that in a book that was written with the handwriting of Ibn Taymiyyah. So there's no way for someone to say, oh well, did Ibn Taymiyyah really said it? He did really say it. Did Ibn Taymiyyah really believe that? He believed that, and he taught that, and what his students teach from him, they show that that was his teaching. A'udhu billah. So another strange thing, with these fake Ash'aris and these fake Maturidis and these people that want to hold hands with the anthropomorphists and the extremists and those who unalive the Muslims in the Muslim countries in the name of supposedly a jihad, they want to say about Ibn Taymiyyah, they want to play nice about Ibn Taymiyyah, they want to say, try to normalize and validate Ibn Taymiyyah, when the scholars and the judges of his time, they convicted him in the Muslim court according to the Islamic law, the proper due process according to the Islamic law. They convicted him of heresy in the creed. They banned him from speaking. They banned him from propagating his creed. And they imprisoned him. They made him write statements of retraction, and he would write them, and he would sign them, and he would read them, and he would swear that he was not going to return to saying anything like that again. And then when they let him go, he would go back on his word, and he would breach his oath, and he would go back to teaching blasphemy until he was imprisoned indefinitely, and he died in prison. So these fake Ash'aris nowadays, they don't want to call him a non-Muslim. If it was the case that they believed that he repented at the end of his life, if that's the case, then we won't, let's say, make a conflict with that person. The conflict is to make people think that the blasphemous things that Ibn Taymiyyah said, the blasphemous opinions that he had, that those are somehow valid. You cannot normalize those blasphemous opinions. So let the intelligent people look at the unhinged and chaotic views and blasphemous views of Ibn Taymiyyah, where he said one time that Allah is sitting on the throne, and another time that He's sitting on the kursi. And it's confirmed that in the hadith that the kursi relative to the throne is like a small ring thrown in a vast desert. So which intelligent and reasonable person would say that this is something valid to say? Which intelligent person would say this about Allah? And what's stranger is what Ibn Taymiyyah conveyed from Uthman ad-Darimi, the body worshipper, the Mujassim, that he said, and he conveyed it, and he concurring it, and he, na'udhu billah, it's an ugly blasphemous statement. He said, if Allah willed, He would settle on the back of a fly or on the back of a mosquito. Na'udhu billah. So of course this is blasphemous to say about Allah, and because it is attributing or claiming that something that is intellectually impossible would be possible, we don't say about Allah Ta'ala that His power is related to the intellectual impossibility or to the intellectual necessity. We say that it is intellectually impossible for Allah Ta'ala to be attributed with any imperfection, and to be settled on the back of a mosquito is something that does not apply to Allah. It is not related to power. We seek refuge with Allah from the corruption of the hearts. And among what refutes the saying of Ibn Taymiyyah is what has been narrated from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his saying, "La fikrata fir Rabb," which means Allah Ta'ala is not reached by the imagination and is not conceived in the minds, because the imagination only perceives things that it has come into contact with, or things that it is familiar with in existence, like the human, like clouds, like rain, like light, and what is like that. It is understood from this hadith, it is not attribute to Him a shape, or to attribute to Him a form or an image or distance or color or an area or a volume, because all of that is from the attributes of the creations. Allah Ta'ala, it is not permissible to compare Him to the creations. It is not permissible to liken Him to the creations. This is why imagining something, it leads to that, because the person only imagines what they are familiar with. They can only imagine a creation. So if the person wanted to imagine something, this person, if he supposedly tried to imagine Allah, he would only come to a conclusion or imagine something that is a creation, and it would obviously lead to blasphemy. And Allah Ta'ala is the only one without a beginning, therefore none of the attributes of the creations apply to Him. He is not attributed with movement or stillness or time or place or location or being inside or outside or disconnected or detached. He is not attributed with emotions. He is not attributed with sounds, letters, or languages. And this is the true creed. That is the creed of tanzih. That is the creed of clearing Allah from resemblance to the creations. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. Next chapter, we're going to talk about warning against reading in some books that are not reliable because of the slanderous or planted things in those books and some of the stories or the fabrications of the Israelites, of the children of Israel. And so the first section about that is warning against the book that is called Qasasul Anbiya, that is authored by Abdul Wahhab al-Najjar. So we'll get into that inshallah in detail, and we'll give some evidence for those things that, against those things that are mentioned in those books, that it is an obligation to warn against. If there are no questions, we'll conclude. Next class is Monday, so this Defending the Chosen is every Monday at 6 p.m. Inshallah. Next class is next Monday. Any questions over there? Huh? Yeah, on Wednesday there is a class same time, but it's a different subject. On Wednesdays it's narrating the book Riyadh al-Salihin, which is a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with the connected chains. Alhamdulillah. طيب نهلل لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد